right, let's go ahead and get started on the review, just the graphing part. So in the first problem, or actually in the first row, just a quick note. I know that on number 1, my u is going to be upside down because a is a -1. On 2, it's going to be a regular u because a is a +2. And on 3, it's going to be an upside down u because a is a -1. So let's get started on the first one. First thing I want to do is find my vertex. This is standard form. That means I'm going to find the opposite of b, so -4, and divide it by 2 times a. And when I put this into my calculator, it's always a good idea to wrap that denominator in parentheses. So I'll end up taking -4 over -2, so when I'm done, x is 2. So far for my vertex, I know the x-coordinate. And then to find the y-coordinate, I'm actually going to do that right up here at the top. To find the y-coordinate, I'm going to put 2 back into my problem. So the first thing to note is in the first term, this is where the mistake is going to happen. This is -1 times x squared. So when I put the 2 in, I need to square 2 first for 4 and then take it times -1. So my first term is actually going to become -4. And then when I put it into my second term, I get 8. And then in my third term, I'm going to add the opposite and I get -5. So when I add that all up, my y-coordinate ends up being -1. So then I can go over 2, down 1. And now I'm going to use my A table, which you guys should have in front of you. I'd look at the row of A, and I should go down 1 and over 1, and then down 3 and over 1, and then down 5. And then you have your U. And I'm not going to actually connect the points so you guys can clearly see. But my y-intercept, I can tell by looking at the equation. I can tell by looking at the graph. My y-intercept is -5. All right, let's go to number 2. So this is vertex form because when I look at it, I can see the vertex. So the shortcut says take the opposite of what's inside the parentheses. But what you really need to do, ask yourself, is what turns that into 0? Those parentheses, that is, into 0. And that's a 3. And if I were to put 3, then this whole first term, if I were to make x 3, I get 0 out of it. And then 0 minus the -2 is -2. So the shortcut says it's the opposite of h. So 3 and then k as is -2. So I can go over 3, down 2. And now I can get my additional points by using my A table of 2. So that says go up 2 and over 1. And then I should go up 6. And from there, I don't have any more room, but you know, I do want to know what my y-intercept is. So maybe I'll just kind of think about this. So I went up 2 and over 1, and then I should go up 6 and over 1. So I'm supposed to go up 10. So if I go up 10, right now I'm going up, let me switch colors. I'm going up 4, and I'm at 10. And then if I went up 6 more and over 1, that would put my y-intercept at 16. So it's not too much to think about. So I'm looking for a good estimate there. All right, number 3, I have, hold on one second. Okay, so this is intercept form. When I look at it, I can see where my graph is going to intercept the x-axis by focusing on the 2 sets of parentheses and what will turn them into 0. In my first set of parentheses, -2 will turn it into 0. And in my second set of parentheses, 4 will turn it to 0. These are not the vertex points. These are where the graph hits the x-axis. So I have 2 choices. I can work my way into the middle to see where my x-coordinate is of my vertex. The other thing I can do is just actually add these up. So that's 2 divided by 2, and that becomes the x-coordinate of my vertex. And then just as we did in problem 1, to get the y-coordinate, I'm going to take x being 1 and put it back into my original problem. So again, a is -1. When I put 1 into my first set of parentheses, I get 3. And when I put 1 into my second set of parentheses, I get -3. And here I multiply, do not add. So when I multiply these all up, I get a +9. So over 1, up 9. And now it's not tough. You can get the additional points. Down 1 and over 1, there's the y-intercept. Down 3 and over 1, down 5 and over 1, and I duplicate some points, and actually get even more points, down 7. and over 1. So what's the y-intercept? It's 8. Okay? All right, let's take a look at number 4. So just a heads up, on number 4, we will want to reset the graph, or the scale on the graph. So the first thing I'm going to note on this whole entire second row is the direction of my u. On number 4, a is 3, so it's a regular u. On number 5, it's 1, so I have a regular u. And on number 6, a is 3, so I have a regular u. So the first thing I'm going to do on 4, since it's in standard form, I'm going to take the opposite of b, and I'm going to divide it by 2 times a. Again, calculator, you need to put that in parentheses because then I get 4/6, which is the same as 2/3. And I'm actually going to leave it as 2/3, and you'll see why in just a second. Now to get my y-coordinate, I'm going to go up to the top because I have more room, and I'm going to make x become 2/3. So writing it in, it's 3 times, and then parentheses, 2/3 squared, minus 4 times 2/3, and then minus 1. And if you want, you can type this whole thing into your calculator, but you need to type it in as exactly as you see as I have written it. If you do try to type this into your calculator just within bits and pieces, um, and I'm rounding, if I put this into my calculator, my first term becomes 1.33, and I'm rounding here. My second term, 4 times 2/3 is 8/3, which is 2.66 as a decimal, and then minus 1. And if I go through and just add the opposite and add all of these up, my y-coordinate ends up being negative 2.33, which is actually negative 2 and 1/3. So since everything's in a third, what I did is I reset the scale both ways, the x and the y scale, by a third. So the first thing I'm going to do is go over 2/3. So here's 2/3. That's not my vertex though. And now I need to go down negative 2/3. So here's down negative 1. Here's down negative 2. And then where the dot is, that's my negative 2/3. Okay, so I'm going to erase these other points now. I do want to get some other points because I can't tell where my graph is hitting the x-axis at all. So what I'm going to do real quick is mark off where every 1 is. So here's 1, here's 2, here's 3, 1, or negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, 1, 2, 3. And when I go with my scale up 1 and over 1, I have to remember it's not each little space, it's an actual amount that's worth 1. So if I go up 1, I really need to move up 3 spaces. So here's, let me switch colors, sorry. Here is up 1, because that's 3 spaces, and over 1, so here's 1, 2, 3, and then over 1, 2, 3. So here's 1 point, and then from there I should move up 3, so that's up 1, 2, 3, here's 1, 2, up 3 and over 1, and then I'm just going to get my partner point up here. So over 1. So what's my final U look like? I'm going to put the final points in black. And now I've got my U. And well, some kind of why I will connect these just so you can get the idea of it. Okay? All right, let's go to number 5. So in this one, standard form, I need to find the y-intercept. So I'm going to take the opposite of b, which is, I'm sorry, not the y-intercept, the x, the vertex, sorry. Opposite of b over 2 times a. So my x is going to be 0. And then once I put 0 back into here, it's going to be 0 minus 2. So my y-coordinate is negative 2. Here's my vertex. And now I can get my additional points. I'm going to go up 1 and over 1, up 3 and over 1, up 5, and then I've got my u. So what's my y-intercept? It happens to be my vertex. It's at negative 2. And going back to the other one, where would I say that my y-intercept is at? I would say because I didn't write this down. Um, Looking at it, I would probably say there's one. It's close to -2, so maybe we'll just estimate at about -2. It's not quite -2 though. It's a little bit less than that. All right, number 6. On number 6, the first thing I'm going to do is, since this is intercept form, where does my graph hit the x-axis? That's at 2 and at 5. You can either work your way to the middle, or to find your x-coordinate, you're going to add them up, which is 7, divide by 2, and your x-coordinate is 3.5. And now to get the y-coordinate, I need to take that 3.5 and put it back into my original equation. So you can either type this all into your calculator. I will work it out though. So when I do that, I'm going to have 3. My first term, 3.5, take away 2 is 1.5. And 3.5 take away 5 is -1.5. So when I multiply that all together, I'm going to get -6.75. Now I'm not going to reset my scale when I graph it. I'm just going to estimate my vertex, my y-coordinate, to be more like at 7. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And you know what? That's it. I'm not going to get any additional points. Um, I could if I want. I'll just have to keep my points estimated. But this is a little bit on the tougher side, I guess. So we're going to leave it be. So, but for the y-intercept, if you wanted to go ahead and fill that out, let's say I am going to go up 3 and over 1. And then I should be going up 9. And then I should be going up a lot more. What is it? All right, sorry, I had to figure out what that beeping sound was. I hopefully fixed the problem. All right, let's go back to this one. So back to the y-intercept. I need to go back and erase some of my additional points because I was not looking at the right row of the A table. So first I'm going to move up 3 and over 1, and then from there I should move up 9 and over 1. And then from there, I should move up 15 and over 1. So if I kind of look at where my y is, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, my y is at 5. If I move up 15, I'm already at about 20 and over 1. And I'm still not the y-intercept, so I'm actually going to leave the y-intercept blank on this. As it turns out, the y-intercept is going to be, if you really look into it, it's going to be 30. Okay? All right, let's go to our last row. So before I start, I'm going to figure out what my shapes are. On 7, a is -1, or sorry, -1/2, so it's upside down. On 8, it's -3, upside down. And on 9, -1/2, upside down. So 8 and 9, just a quick note, they are inequality, so we will be doing some shading when we're done. So let's start with number 7. Going to go for the vertex. What turns my parentheses into 0? That's the opposite of h. -2 either way I look at it. And then what's my y-coordinate? Well, it's k as is, so that's the -1 if I add the opposite here. But again, it's -1 because if I do put -2 back into here, I'm going to get 0, and 0 plus -1 is -1. So if x is 0, y is -1. So here is my vertex. And now I'm going to use my A table, and this is going to be a little tougher to do on the smartboard, so bear with me when I get the additional points. I'm going to go down 1/2 and over 1, and then down 1.5 and over 1, and then down 2.5 and over 1. And if you want to keep going, you can, but I'm going to stop there because I do see what the y-intercept is. It's -3, and then you can make your u. All right, number 8 is the same type of graph, so I'm going to go for the vertex. It's 2, the opposite of h, or 2 makes those parentheses turn into 0. And if I do put 2 back into my first term, it all turns into 0. So the y-coordinate is k as is, or the 2. So I'm going to go over 2 and up 2, and now I'm going to use my A table to get my additional points. So I'm going to go down 3 and over 1. And then from there, I'm going to go down 9 and over 1. And I'm actually going to stop because there's no more points for me to put on the graph. I can see my y-intercept. It's -10. And hopefully remember, I should make a dotted u, because it's just greater than. But now I need to test my point. So I am still going to test 0, 0, which is outside of the U. So if it works, I will shade outside of the U. And I'm going to put that math over here. So here, y is 0. Just going to put 0 in for x, and then I'll go through and do the math. All right, so parentheses first, -2. -2 squared is 4, not what your calculator might say, a 4. You got to be careful when you type this in. -3 times 4 is -12. And so when I am done, I get 0 is greater than -10. And that's true. So when I shade, I will be shading outside of the U. Okay. Number 9, final one, intercept form. So where is my graph going to intercept the x-axis? 3 turns my first set of parentheses into 0, and -2 turns my second set of parentheses into 0. Again, if I want to find the vertex, I can work my way to the middle, or I can add them up for 1 and divide by 2 and get a half. And then I would have to take that half, put it back in, and get my y coordinates. So just below, I have a -1/2. I'd have half minus 3, and half plus 2. So when I do the math, I'm going to get -1/2 times -2.5 times 2.5. So when I multiply all of that together, I get my y coordinate to be 3.125. So when I graph it, I'm going to make it more like 3. So here's 1, 2. Here's my vertex, about there. And as far as additional points go, I'm not going to worry about it. I have decimals all over the place, so it's enough for me to make a U. I'm going to make a solid U. Oops. But now I'm going to test my point. And if I do test 0, 0, I'll do that down here. 0 in for y. I'm just going to put 0 in so you can see what I'm doing. And I get -1/2, whoops, times -3 times 2. So if I do all of that math, I get 3. So let me move this down just a little bit. So when I'm done, is 0 less than 3? Yes, it is. That's true. And since I tested 0, 0, and it's in the U, and it works, that's where I will shade, is in the U. And that is your graphing part. Okay? That's it. Have a great night. I'll see you guys for testing.